doing this via a recording once again. Seems like this is becoming more common lately, but that's the way I've had to do things. Been pretty darn busy. The mining industry is picking up. Things are looking really positive in many different arenas. Finance is starting to show up. Interest in investing in junior stocks is starting to increase. Liquidity is increasing, volume's increasing. Like everything's showing the signs of a resounding element of life, which is good. I think we got good times ahead of us. But this week I have a number of updates that I absolutely must get to. It's not going to be as long as normal. I think Tavi is probably given the biggest pitch today, and he's done just a remarkable job. I think the last letter that he wrote, which was I think a week or two ago, was absolutely fantastic. I don't think I've ever seen anybody write something so comprehensive about the mining industry and the needs for things like government attention and making things move forward. So kudos to him. If anything, the guy should be working with the U.S. government making mining great again. This week, Snowline, or I believe it was in the past 7 days or so, Snowline put out their new MRE. So this is the mineral resource estimate for the Valley deposit. It never ceases to amaze me how you can drill for 2 or 3 years like this and then distill all of that work, all of that hard labor, all that hard work down into a very concise mineral resource like this. But, and basically in the two lines that you see under that first bullet, so the two sub bullets, you can see measured and indicated mineral resources, 204 million tons at 1.21 gram per ton. So basically you have a huge whopping volume of measured and indicated, which means, at a very advanced level for a project like this. So nearly 8 million ounces measured and indicated. That's a 96% increase over the previous resource. That's phenomenal. So the drilling they did last season, 2024, really did bolster that the quality of these resources. Inferred, nothing too shabby there either. They've got nearly 0.9 million ounces, a little less than a million ounces in inferred. So 45 million tons at 0.62 gram per ton gold. Again, very good numbers. I mean, we're basically talking about, let's see, I added them up, 8.83 million ounces. Okay, now if you stop and let that sink in for a minute, that's one of the biggest gold deposits in the hands, or it's probably the biggest gold deposit in the hands of a junior mining company of this type anywhere in North America, certainly. All right, so this is kind of the top highest priority, I'm sure, for acquisition, the top prospective acquisition in the mining space, in the gold mining space. And to put that into perspective a little bit, look, right now, gold, I did these numbers a couple hours ago. This is, by the way, this is Thursday. So this is a day earlier than the broadcast. So if for some reason there's news that comes out on Friday morning, by the way, and I don't have it in here, it's because I can't do future news. Okay, so we'll catch it on the next go. But anyway, I took the number of ounces they have here, 8.83 million ounces, and I multiplied it by the current gold price, and you get $29.1 billion. Okay, yeah, that's the value of metal in the ground. I mean, it's a bit of a hypothetical number because it's not really mined or anything yet, and there's no economics put to this deposit yet. But that's a lot of metal in the ground, $29 billion of metal that have been found. And let's go to the next slide. Here you can see the table. I rambled off the numbers earlier. Nearly 8 million ounces, again, measured and indicated. That's fantastic. That means they can actually, quite frankly, they could take the measured and indicated all the way through PFS or BFS if they wanted to. That's a pretty high confidence category that can allow one to advance to a PFS or BFS if the company so wish. All right, let's go to the next slide. And then here you can see real interesting sensitivity to cutoff. These are various cutoffs of grade for gold. And over here on the left-hand side, you can see it's 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3 is the cutoff they used. 0.2 is the lowest on this table. Now, what's really interesting is the differential that you see, like going from point 0.3 down to point 0.2. Does that really add that many ounces? No, it really. It goes from 7.94 measured and indicated to 8.1. So yeah, a little bit. What is that? Point 1.6, so 160,000 ounces. Nothing to sneeze at, but it's nothing to write home about either. All right. So, but the point is, there's not a lot of movement. In other words, there's a fairly crisp, probably boundary around the resource that they have within the pit right now, which is interesting. Same as you move up the table too. Even if you go from 0.3 gram up to 0.6 gram, okay, yeah, you're going from 7.94 measured and indicated to 7.09. Yeah, so that you're losing about 800,000 ounces and change, but that's not a big move. Okay, like in terms of cutoff, you're not losing much gold. Okay, so again, it kind of testifies to the fairly crisp nature. Even though this is a big bowl of soup, so to speak, the bowl has a clear margin to it, and it doesn't change that much with the grade and the cutoff grade. Go to the next slide, please. Here's an image looking down at all the drilling they've done to date. You can see that they've done a pretty systematic grid approach drill program over the entire deposit, but there are areas that are still open. You can readily see several areas where there's kind of grade trying to squeak out and not closed off. In particular, I think this hole over here in the northeast, it's nothing, huge numbers, but you can see there's a hole way over there in the margin. I think that's at hole 115, if I remember right. And it had a very long run of something like 0.5 gram gold, and it's wide open to the east. And don't forget, like Racy is over there to the east. So maybe there's part of the system trying to reach out and find something else over in that direction. Never know. Sometimes a deposit you think is completely drilled off. The next thing you know, you're finding the next one and the next. So interesting picture that's unfolded here. But I do think they've done a fantastic job, very systematically drilling this thing. Let's go to the next slide. Here you can see a profile of the pit. What a wonderful configuration for a deposit. The pink is the highest grade. It's over 2 grams. The red, 1 to 2 grams. Yellows are 0.3 to 1. So the 0.3 again is cut off. So basically gray is below that. There's a fairly crisp boundary to that, but it's also cohesive. You don't see, you see a nice big, cohesive blob of high grade in there with a fairly, cohesive blob of lower grade around it, and then a sharp margin, which is kind of ideal for mining, to be frank. Like it's easier for grade control. It's easier for, scheduling a mine and so forth. Very, very nice deposit to work with. You can see that the pit now does pull down and grab some higher grade cherries towards the bottom there, which is kind of interesting. We'll show you an image of what the resource last year looked like, and this is an improvement. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is a long section, so this is basically going along the axis of the deposit. It's kind of oriented a bit to the northwest southeast, and this section goes in that direction. Again, look at the high grade at surface there, or right under grassroots. Unbelievable. Very nice cohesive blob of higher grade mineralization. One of the things that my brain goes to immediately when I see a deposit like this is that the first few years of mining, they're probably going to dive right into that high grade, and this thing should absolutely crank out gold production. And what that means is a lot of revenue, a lot of sales, quick, potentially quick payback, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like these are all good things, good problems to have. So this is just almost a textbook example of what you want to find in terms of a gold discovery. There is gold below that pit still. Okay, don't forget. Now, is it high grade? No, but look at deposits like Fort Knox. They've been mining Fort Knox for about 30 years now, I think. And they're at Fort Knox. They're moving out and actually grabbing a lot of those low grade halos around that deposit. So, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we could actually be talking about how this thing's growing even further mine life. Let's go to the next slide. This is the image I was talking about, looking at kind of a before and after picture. So if you look at the image on the left, You can see the green pit, which is the initial resource, which is I think May of 24, if I remember right. And then the blue one is the one that's just come out now. Okay, that's the today resource. Now, there's two things I would draw your attention to. Firstly, the block size, the granularity of the one on the left is much more pixelated. In other words, it's less defined. So a lot more inferred resources and things like that is kind of what part of what's driving that pixelation. Now we have more drilling, which has better defined this and moved a lot of that to measured and indicated. Today, you can see they're using a more refined block model or sub blocks, and it produces a very, very crisp model over here on the right-hand side. It also encompasses more mineralization. The pit goes down quite a bit further. They went down, they grabbed that what's clearly a high-grade cherry towards the bottom there. All right, so that's an example of how a deposit gets refined by drilling. I think that's just a textbook example. You think of other stories that we have, like El Oro. Okay, El Oro is kind of at the left-hand side right now, but as they do more infill, they'll move more towards the right-hand side. Okay, they get more clarity, more confidence around the grade, the numbers they have, and you get a very, very crisp picture like this. Let's go to the next slide. Now we're going to move to other companies. All right, Barksdale. Firstly, I am a director disclosure there. Look, one of the biggest goals that the company has had, really since its deal with Regal, which is Regal Resources USA, which is the underlying owner of the Sunnyside project and some of the other ground there, is to basically complete the first stage of the earn-in to get to 51%. And at this point, the drilling, the 25,000 feet of drilling, as well as $6 million defined expenditures have been met. Okay, so we have basically reached the point where we have completed the necessary requirements to get to that 51%. Okay, this is a process. Of course, there's always audits and stuff between the companies and to make sure that everything's tickety-boo, but in our view, we've resoundingly reached that trigger point, and now we're at a point where we've got to look at the next step, which is moving to the 67.5%. Okay, to get to there, we have more additional expenditures, another 6. You can see down there in 1, 2, 3, third paragraph, and we also have to complete additional drilling. Okay, another round of drilling to go with that. I think this is an important milestone because it basically gives us a majority control over the property, and it really lets us drive the bus. In essence, we're focused like a laser on turning this thing around and crystallizing that value, but also setting a course of how we're going to advance the project from here. All right, don't forget, this is Hermosa District. The Taylor deposit, which is one of the biggest development projects in the United States right now, belongs to South 32, is being built right next door to us. There's a likely, compelling geologic story about why the mineralization at Taylor and even the Peak deposit, which is also part of South 32's ground, will project onto our ground because we think we have the porphyry. The driver of the system appears to be located within our property, the Sunnyside project, and we think we have not only the down dip or the continuation of those two important deposits that S32 is developing, but we also think we have the porphyry that's actually the causative intrusive for the system. Okay, so we're playing in a district where there is tremendous value. I think when South 32 bought Arizona Mining, I think it was something around 1.5 or $6 billion US value. That's the kind of values we're talking about here. And the build for the mine is something like $2 billion. Okay, or a bit over $2 billion, I think, to put in the mine. So this is not this is home run kind of country. Yeah, the stock's undervalued. We're at 51%. You guys can figure it out. Let's go to the next slide. Little comment about the plans going forward. Look, one of the things we've recognized doing the drilling that we've done here recently is there is a near surface porphyry system, porphyry copper system. And we've seen that as a, there's the chalcopyrite, which is what we call hypogene at depth, but there's this chalcocite blanket, which could be supergene, basically an enrichment of copper in a shallower environment that we've now seen again and again and again in drill holes. Don't have our assays yet from the recent drilling that we completed, but I'm actually quite intrigued by the prospect that there could be a very large body of rock here, right in the middle of Arizona, copper country, that is associated with the Sunnyside porphyry. So, this is a story that's a little different than the Taylor Hermosa typical story, but it is very intriguing in its own right. So we are looking at this harder and harder. It will likely become the focus for our additional drilling to increase percentage ownership. That's the comment you see down there at the bottom. Okay, so stay tuned. All right, let's go to the next slide. And this simply shows an outline of the deposits. Taylor is in purple. The Peak copper deposit, Peak, which is a very early or recent discovery that's now expanding. I think Peak will grow and grow and grow over time. They're just to the east of the Sunnyside property, and they project the geology of those deposits is such that it projects northwestward onto our ground. The Sunnyside porphyry itself is located approximately where that little inset box is, somewhere towards the west side of that. That's about the epicenter of that porphyry. So we're basically playing in we'll call it a heat engine of the whole Hermosa system here. All right, let's go to the next slide. Hannan Metals. This is a story I've really grown fond of here recently because of the grassroots nature of their discovery, but also the scale of the systems here. This Valiente copper gold project in Peru. It's kind of the east side of the Andes. It's an unusual area because it's as you come off the Andes to the east, you get into the more forested jungle type area. And this area really hasn't seen historic mining. It's a lot of ground cover, a lot of vegetation and stuff. So the traditional miners never got into this country and actually did much. But these guys have done a fantastic job through grassroots work identifying these absolutely remarkable targets. And at this Bellin target, which is where they're starting to drill right now, this is the news release announcing that they've commenced their drill program. They have found multiple likely porphyry copper gold centers that they're testing for the very first time. These have never seen a drill hole. They've been found through pure grassroots efforts by the company. And we're going to find out if any of them, constitute an economic discovery of some sort. Now, Provisto. Okay, the Provisto target is also in this Valiente property. It's a ways from Bellin. It's tens of kilometers. It's a big property. So it's a ways away, and it's got a different flavor. It's really what we call an alkaline gold system. It looks like a system that's related to these very potassium and sodium rich magmas. And the alkaline gold deposits that we have around the world, they can be very, very large. Okay. And the discovery at Provisto is like aerial extent is huge. It's, probably 4 or 5 kilometers in diameter. It's a very, very large footprint of anomalous gold mineralization expressed in soils and now trenching and some other sampling. They've done rock chips and stuff. Very intriguing target. Now, it's not going to be what's drilled right now. That's going to be drilled later. They are working to get their permits, but I think the fact that they've been able to get this permit for Bellin and that they're drilling here shows you that they can get the work done. Okay, this is a really good sign. Am I as hopeful about Bellin as I am Provisto? Bellin's quite interesting. It's interesting because it's new, basically big undefined anomalies. I would love to see the company find just some major copper gold porphyries. Maybe they will. But I'm really excited about this Provisto target. I'll be frank, that one has got me super excited just because I'm partial to alkaline gold systems, as most people know. I love systems like Cripple Creek in Colorado. They're just immense gold systems, and I think these guys might have one. So both are exciting, but I'm a gold guy primarily. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. Now we're going to move to, oh, this actually shows you the map. So the yellow is the tenement. That's the Vicuña land package. And then the target. So Bellin is where they're drilling. That's in the south. And then Provisto is up in the north. Quite a distance. You can see the scale bar down there in the lower left. That's 50 kilometers. So we're talking about probably 20, 25 kilometers to the north. Drilling at Bellin, going to drill at Provisto. Be patient. This is a company that's going to find something, in my view. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, Harvest Gold. This is a group that's picked up ground. They had to go at a property in BC about 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Didn't work out. They drilled, didn't hit. Okay, they moved on, and they established themselves in Quebec. They've got several properties across this area near Windfall, but they've been working at this Mousseau property primarily. Okay, now let's go to the next slide, and I'll show you where this is at. Up there in the north top of the image, you can see the greenstone belt through there. This is the urban berry belt. Okay, this is a major greenstone belt in the Superior Province, and to date, most of the work on this belt has been done in the center of that image. Around Windfall, Berry. What is it? The other one, Gladiator, I believe it's called. Anyway, Windfall, of course, was advanced and by what was 03 or whatever, and was sold to Goldfields. So that is a huge deposit. Again, one of the biggest gold deposits now. Now it's not in the hands of a junior; it's actually in the hands of a major. But it was probably the last cab on the rank, so to speak, prior to Snowline. It's now been sold to Goldfields. They control it 100%. Big success, big exploration success, right in the middle of that greenstone belt. Well, you come over here to where Harvest is located on the left-hand side. You can see they've got two major belts of tenements that cover what I think is kind of like the mirror image of that greenstone. Okay, so this Mousseau property in particular kind of reminds me of what we see over there at the more classical Windfall Berry region. Now, this area that they have has very little exploration. There are historic references to gold occurrences. Those are the little diamonds that you see scattered across that map in the lower right there. But what the company has done recently is put in a soil grid. So they put in those little polka dots to evaluate the soil, the gold in soils, to identify new targets. All right, so go to the next slide. We're going to look at what they've turned up. This is a zoom in of that grid. Basically, anything that's in red is in the 98th percentile. So the top 2% of all the samples in the grid are expressed in red, and then the top 5%, so the 95th percentile, are in the yellow polka dots across there. All right, and it gives you a sense that they have found in a brand new area, absolutely brand new area. They have found gold that has never been recognized, other maybe historic prospecting, where you see the little yellow stars. This is gold that really hasn't been recognized by historic work. All right, so these are brand new targets. This is how you make discovery. Now, the background there is magnetics, and clearly you can see that they can see a pattern with the ice direction, which is moving from northeast to southwest, where it crosses this, we'll call it magnetic fabric. It has apparently pushed in linear fashion gold anomalism into the soils, to the southwest from these various magnetic features. Does that mean there's discovery there? Don't know yet. But this is really intriguing. These are nice drill targets that could be drilled here in the next few months. Good on them. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, Mogotes. This story gets me even more excited. I think I talked about this on the last video we did 2 weeks ago. They had identified immediately south of the Filo property. They had identified a new target at Mogotes, And now they've come back more recently with some geophysics that support it even more, support the presence of a very large system on their property. Let's go to the next slide. I'll show you where this is. First of all, that greenish trend with all of the bright colors there, that is basically the Filo del Sol drill array. The Aurora deposit is that tightest cluster of drill holes right in the center. That's where the core of that is. By the way, they did announce a resource for that, absolutely phenomenal size and grade. It's one of the biggest discoveries of copper gold in modern history. And, don't forget, this was an acquisition here recently. BHP and Lundin teamed up to buy this, and they paid $4.6 billion. So it shows you the value that was created through the discovery of this massive copper gold system there at Aurora. But that trend continues southward, and it projects onto the Mogotes ground at Filo Sur. And this area, this Los Mogotes, sorry, this is the new target. Los Mogotes is what they call it, and it's just south of Mesita, which is right on the boundary. You can see in faint gray there, you can see the name. That has turned out to be a whopper of an MT anomaly. MT is an electromagnetic geophysical technique that basically looks at how resistive rock is, or resistive versus conductive it is. And there is a whopper MT anomaly. I'm going to show you. You can see the bright colors there, the reds and purples. Doesn't really tell you what's going on just looking at it in plain view. Let's look at it in section. Go to the next slide. Okay, this is a beautiful diagram. I mean, this is one of the most compelling, wow, kind of stories you can see in terms of targeting out there. What are we looking at? We're looking at a long section. This is a cross section that goes down the axis from north to south from the Filo del Sol property, all right, all the way down through Mogotes metals into the Los Mogotes target in this geophysics. So you can see all the drill holes on the right there. That defines the various deposits. Yes, Aurora is just one of several. Sorry, I don't mean to make it sound like Aurora is the only thing, but you can see the deposits there. I think Aurora is the kind of the heartbeat of the whole thing. It's the critical mass of the system. And you can see a little arrow there. It points up. There's a drill hole not too far north of the property boundary that hit 610 meters of nearly 0.4 gram gold and 0.15% copper. So there's clearly mineralization almost to the property boundary. But look at the target they have. This MT anomaly is a whopper. Okay, this is a pretty big scale look at this thing, but it's a vertical anomaly. That excites me because porphyries usually form pipe-like bodies, and that has the shape that I would expect for a porphyry. It's got a nice halo around it with the kind of bunny ear things poking off. Probably an expression of diffuse pyrite going out into the rock adjacent. Basically what you're looking at is going from relatively low resistivity rock, the purple, to higher resistivity rock as you go outward. And that's the exact kind of pattern I'd want to see here. And to me, that's just a beautiful, beautiful porphyry target. Okay, so not only do we have the geochem that they showed in the news release a few weeks ago, now we have the geophysics to back it up. And that looks like a target they could easily reach from surface. Look at the depth of drill holes over here on the right. You can easily see you can drill over there and reach that target, no problem. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is a closer view of that. Okay, so the image over here on the right is basically a zoom in on that area at Los Mogotes target. You can see in faint colors there, the purple and red, Bajinga sticking out the pipe-like thing, and then the bunny ear things sticking off the sides. Notice that at surface, they've mapped and they see alteration. So the rock has been cooked up. It's been flooded with fluids and cooked into various stews of clay and whatnot. And those patterns that they see mimic what they see in the subsurface. In other words, over here where they say phyllic and paragonite, look, that is telling us likely a higher temperature part of the system. And lo and behold, that's kind of above that, that real beefy area in the MT, right above the Pajinga sticking up. That's intriguing. That's really, really intriguing. It's basically like it's the ink stain, ink blot on, you spill ink on your shirt. It's like yep, there, drill there. Okay, so we got a really well-defined target, but it's also defined by geochemistry. They did lots of rock chip sampling. It was in that previous news release, and that whole area just lights up with copper values up into the 0.5 or 6% range. Okay, so even at surface, they're seeing good values. Imagine what they might find if they drill down. Let's hope. Let's hope. There's no promises in life. Never a promise, but man, that looks like a great target. And I'm just so hopeful these guys, which really smart team, make a discovery. What do we have on the left? That is simply a geologic model. It's a schematic model that shows a porphyry there at depth with the more epithermal part of the system above it. So we get the porphyry with a high sulfidation system over the top of it. What they're trying to say is that Mother Nature has eroded down to that dash line, and we're basically sitting in an environment just above the tippy top of the porphyry. So we stripped off most of that epithermal material, and at least in this area, and we're looking at a porphyry target now below. Now, to give you a sense of what this, this is a highly speculative property. Okay, nothing's guaranteed in life, but just to give you a sense of what a discovery like this could look like, there was an announcement this week. Go to the next slide. About a discovery over here on the blue ground that you see on the right-hand side, the NGEX. Okay, now, what are we looking at here? This is the property position. North is to the right, okay? So everything's been rotated. And basically, we have Mogotes ground, which is on the left-hand side, the teal blue. BHP and Lundin is the orange ground in the middle. And we have NGEX over here in the baby blue on the right-hand side. Now, this Luna-Huasi discovery that you see, which is closer to the BHP side, property, that one, they had some remarkable news this week. Absolutely remarkable. That's a discrete porphyry target, similar geophysical expression, similar superficial, alteration, geochemistry, and et cetera, et cetera. That's basically similar to what we're talking about over here at Mogotes. The target we're talking about, see where it says new option claims, that yellow blob kind of immediately south of those words, that's the target we're talking about, this Los Mogotes target. So let's go to the next slide and let's look at this Luna-Huasi discovery. This week, NGEX announced a 1,619 meter, that's a mile. Think about it. That's a mile of mineralization. Intercept of 0.87% copper equivalent. Now, within that, there's higher grade. There's 876 meters of 1.13% copper equivalent, which is remarkable. Okay, now, it's kind of hard to see the drill, but basically that thicker black line, they have several holes that were drilled previously, like, come down. They were trying to reach down to it, the thinner black lines, and they were seeing some pretty good numbers, but this hole, they went long. Okay, they said, there's something happening more beyond the end of those previous holes. Let's drill down. So this hole 27 kept going. It kept going. I think it was like 2 kilometers long in total. It was crazy, but it hit. Okay, look at how this went through. It really went through what is the high sulfidation part of the system. And yeah, there's mineralization there, but it carried on. And down there at the bottom of the drill hole, they hit, look at this, 743 meters of 0.56% copper equivalent, of which 0.44% is copper itself. And then there's 0.13 gram gold. And I think the 2.3 is silver. Yeah, silver. Okay, great intercept, but it's in proper porphyry mineralization. You see the little blue dash lines, the potassic zone, and then you got probably the phyllic zone or something. Anyway, that is your porphyry. That kind of arcuate picture there. That is the porphyry. So imagine over in Mogotes, the big Pajingas sticking up. That's the Pajingas here. And when they drilled down and they got into the Pajingas, guess what they hit? They had a big fat porphyry. Okay. Could we find the similar thing over at Mogotes? Let's hope so. Let's hope so. That'd be really exciting. Next slide. Okay, Newfound continues to do exploration drilling along the Appleton Fault corridor, and they've been focused quite a bit around the area they picked up from Lab Gold a few months ago, or it's probably been a year now that they picked it up. And there's this one target called Dropkick, which is, I think, the northernmost target or close to the northernmost target along the Appleton Fault zone. But they've hit some nice high grade, 42.8 gram over nearly 15 meters, 47.6 grams over nearly 4 meters, 22.9 over 2.4. So, even though this is kilometers, like 8 kilometers away, they're still hitting high grade on this Appleton Fault corridor. Anybody thinks this is a small gold system, that's crazy. Okay, how could something 8 kilometers, at least 8 kilometers long, just go down 200 meters and stop? That's nuts. Okay, that's not the way Mother Nature works. These are all part of a bigger system that penetrates down into the ground. In my view, there's a lot more gold here than has been announced in their recent resource. In my view, my strong view, but it's my view. And the fact that they're seeing high grade this far away from the Keats zone, for example, tells you that this is a whopper of a system. Even at Fosterville, which I did a lot of work at, I don't remember seeing high grades like this far away from the mothership. So I think that's a good sign. Let's go to the next slide. This just gives you a sense of scale. So you've got, in north is rotated. Okay, so north is kind of to the upper right. The Appleton Fault zone is a black line. All the main deposits they've worked, like Keats and Keats West and so forth, are down here in the lower left. You've traced the Appleton Fault corridor, and you can see as they get up into the old lab ground, they've made several high-grade discoveries there. And this Dropkick zone is that one in the upper right, so farthest north. Remarkable. Okay, yeah. Don't tell me there's not more gold here. This is a big system. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Tectonic. Look, we don't talk about placements per se. That's just not our cup of tea. But what I want to point out is that the company has money to be aggressive this year. And this is May, okay? We don't have to wait until August or September or whatever to get out in the field and start working. The company has cash. They have their targets are well defined, getting back into this Alpha Bowl where they hit a very nice drill intercept last year, albeit short, but probably telling us there's a much, much bigger discovery there. Look, they have the money they need. They can get in there and get the program going, and they can drill aggressively this year. Think about the gold market where it's at. It's picking up. We're starting to see more and more steam. Let's hope this continues. No guarantees in life, but let's hope this continues. I think this company is done a complete 180, is headed on the right path. They've tightened up the share structure. They've got cash. They've got momentum support from a lot of new investors. They're going to get out in the field. They said it right here. Okay, they're going to get out and bust their rear end and try to make a big discovery this year. Maybe this is our next valley. Who knows? Let's see. Go to the next slide. Okay, Westward Gold. I'm not looking to toot my horn, but I did join Westward. I'm joined as chairman of the company. You say, Nevada Explorer, why would I focus on this? Okay, well, this property, this target is one of a target that I identified. This is in the Toyabe Range in Nevada, so near the Cortez mining district that's controlled by the joint venture between Barrick and Newmont, the Nevada Gold Mines joint venture. This is very close to that. And I think this is a critical piece of that Cortez district. And I identified a target here many years ago, and this company has it, and they're about to test it. And I'm so excited, I can't stand it. I've been waiting years and years to see this. I know a lot of the technical people on their team, first class people, really smart mappers, explorers. These guys know what they're doing, and I am just riveted to be part of this story. So looking forward to that. All right, I think that's it. Go to the next slide. That might be it. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for me this week. Have a good couple of weeks. We'll see you shortly. Take care.